In this video, we'll learn about how to manage permissions in a SharePoint server. We have an agenda to learn about authentication and authorization, creating users in AD, SharePoint groups, creating custom permission groups, granting permissions to the users and the groups, and to create custom permission level, and to bind users or groups and permission level, how to bind the users to this permission level, and managing the permissions in a subsite, and allowing the users to create their own site. We have an option from the SharePoint Center Administration. Every user can create his own website. And how to set confirmation and deletion policies on unused site. You may go on creating every website in a SharePoint, and some sites may be unused. So unused sites can be automatically deleted from the SharePoint server. We have one policy to create it. Later, how to set permissions on the list and libraries. So we have an agenda of this. Let's learn in detail of each and every topic. The first topic is about authentication and authorization. Authentication is an act of what someone claims himself to be. Let's say I need to prove I am Rahul. So how I'll prove it? By showing my ID card or by showing my photograph. So when I show my photograph, it says that yes, you are a Rahul. So how to tell that to the computer that I am Rahul? So basically that can be told by username and password. So authentication is an act of proving someone himself to be by proving his username and corresponding password. When both were matched, the system will identify, okay, he is an authenticated user. And what is authorization? An authorization is whether Rahul has some permission on a SharePoint website or not. He may be the part of Active Directory, that's okay. But the user can also be part of SharePoint server also. That means the user need to have some permission on SharePoint website. That is a process of authorization. So authorization is an allowing or denying access to the users. Okay. Already we have seen how to create users in an Active Directory in the first chapter. Now we will continue with SharePoint groups. By default, the SharePoint has 4 different kinds of groups in it, 4 different kinds of permission group. And every group has corresponding permission level. We have 4 different kinds of groups are site members, site owners, site visitors, and site viewers. When I say site, the site will indicate the title of that website. Site members has the permission level of contribute. Site owners have a full control, and site visitors have a read control, and site viewers have a view control on a website. The main difference between site visitors and site viewers is the person who has a read permission, that is the person who has an access of visitor, he can download the document from the website. The person who don't have a permission to download the content, then obviously he will be under site viewer. So that's a key difference between visitors and viewers from the SharePoint. And owners will have a full control. They will be like site administrators, and site members has a contribute permission. A person who has a contribute permission can add the data into the list or a library. He can even modify it, or he can even delete it. But he cannot create any new column, or he cannot create any new view in a list or a library. Creation of a columns or entering into the list settings or a library settings cannot be possible by the contributors, that is site members. So we can see all these predefined groups in our SharePoint. Let's get back to our website. Set actions, site permissions. It's a one way of going into the site permissions directly. And second way is we can enter into the site settings page, and there we have an users and permissions. From here we can enter into the site permissions. And what we discussed, the same thing, site members. The site indicates that SharePoint 2010, because SharePoint 2010 is currently my website title. That's the reason SharePoint 2010 members are shown here. So members, owners, visitors, and viewers. Members has a contribute, owners has a full control, visitors has a read, and viewers have view only permission. Apart from it, system account is a farm administrators. He already have some access on our website. And we also have a site collection administrator too. So these two persons are different, having different permissions apart from our site. So they will be not part of any other group by default. They'll be given permissions directly. And if you want to know how many persons are given as an site collection administrators, then we can directly enter into site actions, site settings. Right now the site collection administrator logged into the machine, that is logged into the website, and that's the reason site collection administrators option is also available. And also site collection administration is available only when site collection administrator logged in. You can get enter into the site collection administrators. You can see there were two different kinds of site collection administrators. One is site collection administrator 1 and site collection administrator 2. Let's bind some users into this permission groups. I'll take first permission for the owners. Get into the owners permission, where you can also see the two persons also acting as an owners. Enter into new, and let's enter user 1 as an owner of this website. Verify whether user is there or not. You can just click on people picker, it will verify. Just click on OK. Now user 1 is part of an site owner. And whenever you try to log in as a different user, precisely just get back to the home page and then try to sign in as a different user. That's a good way of signing as a different user. From site collection administrator, when you click on it, on the welcome menu, you have an option called as a sign in as a different user. Now I can log in as an user 1 with the corresponding password. Now user 1 logged into the website, and user 1 has a full control only on this particular website. Let's get enter into the list, any list, and you can add a new data, you can check on any item, you can delete it, you can maintain approving. Every permission is possible for the user 1, and you can get enter into the list settings. You can furtherly maintain all the permissions in the list settings also. You can drop any column, or you can delete it, you can edit. Basically he has a site administrator rights. He can do anything on the site. Same thing can also be repeated in a libraries also. You can get enter into the libraries. You can mark any document, you can edit it, you can delete it, you can download it. What are the permissions he has? Everything is possible for him. Get into the library settings is also possible for user 1. Everything. And whereas when he get back to the site settings page, and here you will notice that since he was a site owner, he is not having a permission to view anything about collection. That's the reason site collection administration, that particular link is hidden now. That will not be visible. And whereas also the second option, site collection administration. Previously we used to have site collection administration here. Even that option also not available. Because user 1 is not as an site collection administrator. He is a site administrator. That's the reason site actions and site administration is available for him. Very, very important point to note. Whenever user 1 logs in, there will not be any site collection administration because he was a site owner. Site owner has a full control permissions. You can furtherly get into the site permissions, and I can add any other person as an owner also. I can add one more person as my colleague, and at the same time I can add members also, site members who should be the members of this website. And I can also add visitors. The person who should download the document, they will be a visitors, and I can make one person as a visitor by adding a new. But only when I went into the viewers, I don't have a permission to add any viewer to the website. Very, very important point to note here. Site owners won't have a permission to add another person as a viewer, whereas this option can be given for a site collection administrator. Site collection administrator can add any other person as a viewer. Let's log in as a site collection administrator and check it. Precisely, I'll go to the home page. Let's log in as a site collection administrator 1. Corresponding password. Get back to the site permissions, and here you'll notice that members can be added, owners can be added. Owners can be added because we already added the owner, and you can also add visitors, that is also possible. And also viewers. Site collection administrator can also add viewers also. That option is also given for the site collection administrators. But whereas when user 1 logs in, he cannot add any other person as a viewer. Let's get back to the home page. Now let's give a permission for a site member. Let's make user 2 as a site member so that he will have a contribute permissions on our SharePoint website. So let's see how to give a site member permissions. Go to site actions, or even you can use set permissions here and precisely just click on site members 2. Click on new and grant user 2 as a permission for a site member. Just click on OK. Now come to the home page. Sign in as a different user. User 2, and you can enter DSS at 123, the corresponding password of user 2. Now user 2 has successfully logged into the website. Now can I enter into the site settings page? No. Since user 2 is having only permission to create and to edit and to delete, but not having any permission to get into the settings. That's the reason he can even go to the list, any list. You can add an item, or you can edit an item, or you can also delete an item. But a contributor will not have any permission to create a view or modify view or creating a column or getting into the listings. You can close the this. Everything is grayed out for an user 2. Because user 2 is having only permission of contributor. A contributor can add, can edit, can delete the data, but cannot modify the administration privileges. It's a very important point to note here. So user 2 is a contributor on our website, nothing but a site member. Let's make another person as a site visitor. So let's log in as an administrator. Maybe we can even log in as a user 1. DSS at 123. And user 1, since he is an owner, he can also get into the site settings page. Let's see, I want to check for an user 2. For the same page, I am trying to log in as an user 2. Let's see what happens. I know this user 2 is not having any access on the settings page. Whenever we try to sign in as a different user, the second user, that means the next user also will access same web page. Now sign in as a different user, precisely log in as a user 2. Now you'll see that access is denied for an user 2. It doesn't mean that access is denied for the complete website. The access is denied for an user 2 for the corresponding web page he was trying to access. That is nothing but a settings page. Then where that user has an access, you can just click on go back to the site. On this web page he has an access. That's the reason I have stated already. Precisely whenever you want to sign as a different user, come back to the home page and then log in as a different user to avoid that particular error message access is denied. That's a very important point to note here. Next, log in as an user 1 and let's give a permission for an visitor. So username, maybe a user 1. You can log in as a site collection administrator also, no problem. DSS at 120. Now let's site actions, site permissions. Let's take a site visitors group, and within a visitor group, let's add user 3 as a site visitor. Assuming that each and every user is already there in an Active Directory. Yes, user 3 is a part of an AD, it's verified successfully, and click on OK. Since user 3 is an visitor, so he may not be having access to the permissions on a group. So once again, I will get back to my home page and I can go to the library, sign as a different user. That is user 3, corresponding password of user 3. Now closely observe this. User 3 will not have even a permission to create a new web page, but he can see the content which is there in a website. Complete content which is there in a website can be seen by user 3. Since user 3 is an visitor, you can get into any document library and check on a document. You'll also have an option to download a copy of this document. Whereas whenever a user 4, let's take an example of an user 4 as a viewer, he may not be having this option. This particular option will be grayed out. That's only the key difference between site visitors and site viewers. And viewers can be added only by the site collection administrators. That's a very, very important point. And even you can just verify, you cannot add anything new, or we cannot edit, we cannot delete, but we can view the data, view properties. You can see the properties of it, what data which is there in it. That is possible. Same thing also in a list. You don't have an option to add new item here, but you can view it and you can see the versions of it. Of course, you can set an alert. If something got changed, let me alert me. So like this we can set alert. We already seen this, how to set an alert in the list level. So this is the possible operations that user 3 can perform because he was in site visitors. So that's all in this video. In the next video, we'll see how to create custom permission levels. Right now we are using only the predefined groups which are there in SharePoint, that is site members or a site owners, site visitors and site viewers. How to create a custom permission group, and whenever I create a custom permission group, I should also create a permission level. Let's say the user 5 or a user 6, you should having only a permission for adding the data which is in the list only. So how to restrict user 5 to only for adding but not editing but not deleting. So like this we'll see the custom functionality in the next video. That's all in this video. Thank you.